Mandalorian, why do you have to come out so early in the morning, bro? I just woke up. But, let's jump into the review. What's up, Menace soldiers? I'm the Alliance. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing a quick review, a synopsis on the actual episode, and kind of like speculation for next episode on The Mandalorian episode 3. So let's just begin with my first thoughts on the whole episode. I thought it was a pretty solid episode. I think out of all the episodes so far, it might have been the weakest in terms of story. It kind of seems the most generic out of all the episodes we've seen so far. That doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but it's not as good as the other ones so far, at least in my opinion. So the Mandalorian and Yodi are off on a trip in their favorite rocket ship. I'm just kidding, but like, they are actually doing that. Now they're looking for a safe place to kind of lay low for a while, because if you remember from last episode, the Mandalorian is now being hunted down by the Imperial forces / a ton of other bounty hunters who are looking for him to claim their prize. So they need to find a spot that they can't be found, and they find this planet. They think that it's going to be a nice place to go and kind of live and kind of lay low for a while. Well, they soon discover that is not the case, and they are forced to kind of join up with another, not a bounty hunter, but another mercenary, I guess you could say. And the two of them team up to then help the farm out to help them protect themselves from these raiders, I guess you could say. These bandit, barbarian, monster orcs. Oh my gosh, they are orcs. Wow. I didn't think about it, but that entire first scene that we see when they're like attacking the farm and like taking all their stuff, I just realized like that looks like a scene right out of Lord of the Rings. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, those things look like orcs. They talk like orcs too. They're space orcs. Oh my gosh, from Lord of the Rings. Wow, that's a really cool like little, I don't know if it's a nod, a little tip of the fedora. You know what I mean? But I think it was, that's pretty cool. I like that. Anyways, let's get to the pros of this episode, because while there are a lot of pros, there are actually a couple cons I want to talk about. And most of the cons have to come with the character of the Widow. So we'll talk about her then. So first off, the special effects in this episode are top-notch. They're always top-notch in this entire series, so that's good. While the story is pretty generic, I think it has a lot of interesting things that make it unique enough, so I'm okay with that. And the new relationship between the Mandalorian and the mercenary is really cool to kind of see. So I hope that kind of would have blossomed out a little more. Not really have them kind of become more like a relationship type of thing. I definitely see them more as like bros, you know, because while she is a girl, she's definitely more like a bro chick. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't date a bro chick. You know what I mean? Like you'd have her as like your ally doing stuff. So I actually thought she was going to team up and join his crew, but I guess that didn't happen. So that's okay. And I'm almost certain she'll show up later on in the series anyway, so that's okay. And of course, the biggest pro of all, Yodi is just so darn cute. He's definitely the cutest creature we have gotten in Star Wars universe. You know, Yodi's cuteness makes a porg stay up all night. You know what I mean? Like, they can't even get some sleep because they know they're not ever going to be as cute as him. Well, I should say Yodi's probably the second cutest. The first one is definitely Jar Jar, 100%. So now that I kind of covered the pros of this episode, I got to talk about the cons. For me, this episode probably felt like the most TV show-esque episode out of all of them so far. The other episodes kind of felt like they were more in conjunction with each other, like the story was kind of more connected. This one feels like a very own episode, which is okay, but the issue with that is that then you get this feeling of like, oh, it's just another episode type of feel from it. I think they did a decent job with what they had, and I think that with the story given, and it was kind of like like I said, generic story, kind of like, here comes this outsider who comes to a town and makes this town be able to fight the people who are attacking them. We've seen that done before. That's not a new thing. It's kind of like a Dances with Wolves call out. I'd say Avatar call out, but because Dances with Wolves is like a cowboy and Mandalorian is kind of more cowboyish, I guess you could say that. Another con was the villains. I didn't really think that the villains of this episode were very intimidating. I mean, when they first showed up, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then they didn't really do any massive damage. They just kind of showed up, stole some fish, and then left. Like, they didn't kill anybody, you know what I mean? They didn't actually raid the village. They just kind of went in and took stuff and then left, and then that was it. And they didn't harm anybody. They didn't really show their their violent side like I feel like they should have. Even if it was just one person who died, you know, maybe like the leader of the village would have been out there like, no, I won't let you take our stuff. And then of course he gets killed. And that's what makes all the other villagers like, oh no, we need like a new hero. We need a new leader. And that's when the Mandalorian would come in. I think from a story element, that would have worked out better, but it's still decent with what we have. And then at the very end, they have all these villagers who are barely even trained going against these orc bandits, and the orc bandits have a chicken walker on their side. So the big question was for me, like, how many villagers died? We didn't even see how many died. I think one guy got smacked by like one of the orcs' hammers. We have like these two low-level villagers who maybe like use their stick to poke things like twice. They get the kill on the leader orc. I guess for me, there was really no tension. There was no gravity to the situation. I didn't feel like this is a dire thing for the village. I kind of felt like, oh, this is just another episode in a TV show. Now, I don't know if that's because of the direction given by the director, which is Bryce Dallas Howard. You know, when I saw her name on there, I was kind of thinking, oh no, is this going to become like a female episode? But I think it did a good job of showing girl power without actually hitting you over the head with it. So that's what girl power should be done. If it's done subtly, I'm 100% okay with it. But if it's done endgame at the end of the movie when they have that little girl power scene, that's too much. Like I said, I'm all for girl power, but it's got to be subtle girl power that helps the narrative, not confuses your audience. Now, speaking of the females of this episode, because there are two, I guess you could say that are the outstanding ones. First, let's start with the mercenary. I thought that she was an interesting character. I thought that the actress was a really good fit for the role. She definitely looked very intimidating, but I would say that I don't know if she was 100% sold on her own character. That's not to say she did a bad job, but I think if she shows up again in the future, she'll be more in tune with her character and she'll be better at being that character. Like I said, that could just be my opinion, but that's just how I feel. Now, the other female in this episode is the Widow. For what she was, I thought she was fine. I think she did a good job with what she was supposed to do, and her character served the story. And her acting was fine as well, but when it comes to her character, she seemed a little too eager to just jump into being in a relationship with the Mandalorian. Now, I understand, here comes this, you know, armored Jesus to come save your village, and I get that. He's got like a cowboy prowess to him, you know what I mean? He's got a rough exterior, but you know, he's a good guy deep inside, got a heart of gold. And she can detect that, and we understand that. But I think right off the bat, it just seems like they kind of forced the relationship a little too much. And the thing about it is, they didn't really have a relationship, but it just seemed a little bit too much like, oh, here's this good-looking guy, I'm guessing. Do you know what I mean? I'm just kind of flirt with him a little bit, you know? And I guess that's okay, because, you know, she's a strong, independent woman. She can do whatever she wants. But I definitely detected a sense of, like, why would you do this with the character? The character just kind of seems almost like she's just trying to get into the Mandalorian's pants. At one point in the episode, she doesn't actually say it this way, but it almost comes off this way. She says to him, she's like, so, like, do you ever take off your armor in front of other people? Do you know what I mean? And it almost comes off, if you read into the scene a little bit differently than what I think they're trying to portray, it sounds like she's like, so hey, do you want to do stuff? You know what I mean? Do you want to take off your armor and do stuff with me? Because I think that you are a very attractive man, even though I never saw your face, but your body and your physique and the armor you are showing makes me think that you are good looking, so we should definitely get it on. And that's what it seems like she's kind of saying in that scene. And then from that point on, she's always just kind of like looking at him in ways that it's like, man, like, we get it. Like, we get the character kind of has like a little bit of a superhero crush on him. And what I mean by a superhero crush is like, just because you don't necessarily know this hero who's coming to save you, they still have like a hero tendency. And so you want that hero to be yours because you feel like a protection with them. And that's what I think she has with his character, and that's okay, but it definitely feels like she's more lusting over him instead of actually trying to maybe pursue an actual relationship with him. Now, I think by the end, they do a good job of kind of showing that, like, hey, you know, this is a relationship that you could possibly pursue with this woman, but then, you know, it doesn't really go anywhere anyways, so it's kind of like, what was the point of giving him this relationship if it doesn't really do anything anyways? I think it's mostly there to kind of show the viewers that he's a ladies' man, I guess. I don't necessarily know why that's there. Another thing that I noticed was in one scene he's like, hey, I never take off my helmet in front of other people, and then like 5 minutes later he's like watching these kids and he just takes it off right in front of this massive window and just starts eating. And it's like, didn't you just say you don't take off your helmet in front of other people? There's a ton of people out that window, and you're not exactly like away from other people. Like anyone could walk in and see your face, and it's like, what are you doing? I mean, I understand the idea of him, you know, possibly taking off his helmet to show like, hey, he might be able to enjoy a life of peace. But it also comes down to like the whole point of what you're doing is like you're taking off your helmet in front of a bunch of people, in front of a massive window, when you said you legit don't do that because that's against your code. Then why are you doing it? I think a more interesting way they could have did this was initially he's looking out the window and he's like, you know, like happy to see little Yodi being happy. And he goes to take off his helmet and he's like, wait, no, what am I doing? I can't do that. You know, I have a window in front of me. It's not right. I don't do that. So then he closes the curtain and kind of looks sad to do it. And then you see him take off the helmet. Now, of course, you don't see his face, but it's like, it would show that like there is that dynamic inside of him where like he's a Mandalorian. He's been raised to be a Mandalorian, but deep down inside, he longs for something more. You know, he doesn't want to be defined by his helmet anymore. And I think that's something that's very interesting that could have been definitely shown if they would have did my idea. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a decent scene and overall it's a decent episode, but there are little things here and there that definitely could have been improved upon just by little tweaks. Also, what is up with that chicken walker? Like, how did that thing... It was like a monster. Like, it had like its own AI inside of it controlling it. Like, there was no one driving it. It was kind of just doing its own thing and thinking for itself. I was trying to like figure out, wait, we never saw one do that before, so like where'd this come from? And I'm sure there's like a novel out there where they're like, well, around episode 6 they started making these AI controlled AT-ATs or AT-STs, chicken walkers, and these things were actually controlled by themselves, and so they could actually think for themselves and you wouldn't actually need a pilot. I'm sure there's some lore out there that explains that. But as you guys know, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan, and I've never heard of that actually being a thing. So maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong. But I just didn't really get that. Was there a pilot in there? Because the way that thing was acting was like it was its own sentient being. But overall, I think the episode is solid. It's not great, and it's definitely the weakest we've seen so far out of The Mandalorian. But when it comes to TV shows, just with the special effects, with the characters, the story was generic, but it was done well enough, so I think that's okay. And just with like the overall setting of, you know, what was going on and the plot, I think it did a decent job with what it was. So like I said, while it is the weakest episode in this series, it is definitely a solid entry into the Mandalorian series. So with my review out of the way, let's kind of talk about speculation. What's going to happen in episode 5? Personally, I have no idea. I don't know where they're going next. I definitely think at one point in the future, not episode 5, I'm almost starting to run into the mercenary and he might run into the widow. I guess we'll see how that goes. There's supposed to be 8 chapters in this series. So far we've seen 4 out of the 8 chapters, so I'm almost certain the 5th chapter is going to be like its own thing, 6th chapter is going to be its own thing, and then the last 2 chapters are going to be connected, kind of like how the first 2 episodes were really connected. So I don't exactly know what's going to happen. I'm almost certain someone big is going to come eventually into the series. There's actually a part of me, and if you guys didn't know this, Boba Fett is actually alive in canon. In one of the novels, it's explained that he actually survived, or it's alluded to that he survived the Sarlacc pit in episode 6. And I was pretty sure he was going to survive anyways. But in a future episode, and I don't know if it'll be season 1 finale or anything like that, but they're going to show Boba Fett. I think Boba Fett is going to be the one brought in to take down the Mandalorian for whatever reason. Now, whether that means the Mandalorian goes against the other Mandalorians and they all get mad at him, or Boba Fett is no longer part of like the main Mandalorian guild, and so then Boba Fett is now allowed to go after the Mandalorian or something. I don't know how that's going to work. But I think that's a pretty dope idea, the idea that Boba Fett might be reintroduced into the series. And actually, I think the best way they could do this, if they were going to, was at the end of this season, as soon as the Mandalorian finishes off the final boss of season 1 or whatever, and he goes to leave, and then we see like this hologram of someone like, the Mandalorian is still out there. And then it cuts to the hologram, and it's actually Boba Fett standing there, and he's like, don't worry, I got the target. And then it's just black screen. And that's the end of season 1. So then that would tease the idea of season 2 is going to be The Mandalorian versus Boba Fett. Sounds pretty dope, not gonna lie. But that is it for my review, synopsis, and predictions for the future. What do you guys think is going to happen in the next couple episodes? Let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications. If you guys don't like, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more videos. And until next time, guys, I will catch you later. Peace.